On November 30th, 2011, the new administration of Chicago Public Schools under Chief Executive Officer John Claude Brizard, and on orders obviously from Mayor Rahm Emanuel, announced that they're going to close or turn around an additional 20 schools.
Education justice is the civil rights issue of our time.
All right.
Education justice is about finding the way to stop these takeovers of public spaces and public schools for profit.
Yeah. That's right. Come on with it.
And to pretend that there's another solution that damages, destroys, and hurts communities.
Schools were excluded from consideration if they were at or above the 25th percentile, meaning that they were not...
This will make it the 10th year that CPS has been involved in this turnaround in school closing strategy that was exported nationally by Arne Duncan when he became U.S. Secretary of Education. Even though in most cases it's proved that the strategy was either to privatize schools or the buildings and union bust, or that it hasn't worked despite the claims in the marketing, they're moving forward with what amounts to one of the largest groups of schools on the hit list.
Our school! Our school!
There's 10 schools on the list to be closed, phased out, or become post to co-location, it's called, and 10 schools that are going to be subjected to turnaround. All the proposed turnarounds are ugly. The amazing thing is that the Board of Education this year didn't even pretend to select even one school that had any white children in it. Since standardized test scores and the so-called matrices that the board uses to do this accountability system basically measure poverty or wealth, when you identify schools that have low test scores, you're also identifying schools where the children face enormous challenges in the community. And one of those schools is Marquette Elementary School on the south side. The same is true, by the way, for all of the schools that are on both hit lists, the hit list for closings and the hit list for turnaround. Marquette's been overcrowded for decades, and Marquette has been subject to a bunch of rotating administrative pressures. So the test scores, first because of the actual problems in the community, and then also because of the Board of Education's mismanagement of many of these schools. They're basically playing musical chairs with the principals. The school's been sabotaged. And so on Martin Luther King Day, there was a very, very moving protest at Marquette. The protest begins at the school and moves to Marquette Park.
Oh, my name is Marcy Hardaloupas. I'm a 20-year veteran of Marquette School. I've got a master's degree plus. I've taught 4th, 5th, 3rd, basically 4th grade. Over the 20 years, I've seen our funding decrease, our class sizes grow bigger, our art, music cut out, no social workers for a school of 1,400 students, and gang problems, violence in the school, and we have no plan to deal with them. Resources have been cut, curriculum has been forced upon us, books they choose, even though the teachers have objective. There is no discipline plan, no help from anybody to help our kids. They're being pushed up every year. The board is the 24 percentile to pass kids. You want your kids passing at a 24 percentile? Are you kidding me? And yet the board has been passing them every single year and then blaming the teachers because they couldn't get those kids up to the 70th in the next year. This has been a planned thing. I've been there 20 years. Every year it's getting worse and worse because the board has refused to fund our schools and give the money that those kids deserve in the school. Yet AUSL just got $4 million pumped into the school to fix the air conditioning, to fix the roof, to hire more teachers, to hire social workers, to put computers in the classroom. We've never had a computer. We don't even have a loudspeaker in our rooms, half the schools. And yet they come with their little suits already, like digging over our corpse. We're going to fix the roof. We're going to put air condition. We're going to fix the intercoms. Everything under the sun has been given to these people who are businessmen. Mr. Tim Crawley, the president of the Board of Education, was the president of AUSL. How is he getting the funding? Who's getting the money for all these schools and the kickbacks?
And the kickbacks.
And the kickbacks, the book series that we've been forced to use for 10 years, and they're telling us do it, and we're telling them it doesn't work, it's not helping our kids. You do that, you're on probation, you have no choice. Is this a democracy or isn't it? So, just everything. Our kids, they're saying we're the shortest day. Well, let me tell you this. Our kids get 20 minutes of lunch. There is no recess where the suburbs get half hour of lunch and a resource every day. Gym every day. We have gym once a week. We don't have art and music. Our kids aren't good enough for art and music. And I don't even know, there's so many things. Good teachers, master degrees plus, nationally board certified teachers forced out of the system because the board doesn't have reading specialists, tutors. We've had programs that have come and gone at our school. Every year something else. Somebody gets money, do this program. Oh, this program's no good, throw it out. Somebody else's program. Every year. And we're tired of it. We're tired of being treated. We're educators. We want our kids to learn, but you have cut all our resources away from us. Thank you.
Whose school? Our school. Whose school? Our school.
And then on the way back, they stopped at the site of where an 8th grade student had been murdered just recently.
The teachers also have a dedication to this community. The teachers are invested in the young people in this community and getting rid of those teachers and bringing in new teachers that have absolutely no connection to the community, to the students, to the young people in this community is not the right thing to do. One thing that I can say as an alumni of Marquette School, something that I noticed then and something that I still notice now, the teachers need resources. They need help. They need support in the classrooms. They need more books for their students. They need after-school programs. They need tutoring. They need teachers' aides. These are the things that we need in our communities. We need communities that are connected to the resources in the communities as well. The community-based organizations like Iman, like SWIC, like SWAP, all of these organizations in the community, we need more resources. We need help for our young people. These are young people that I work with every day. Quabini Daniels, Jamisha King, Vanessa Redmond. These are all young people that are in this community. Some of them went to Marquette, some of them went to Fairfield, but they're part of this community and they're leaders in this community.
That was part of the protest against the proposal to turn around Marquette. For the mayor to claim that Marquette should be subjected to turnaround when he has refused to even admit that the gang problem and the violence problem in certain communities in Chicago is out of control is just another example of how ridiculous the publicity stunts of this administration are. But interestingly, and I think this needs to be said, Marquette isn't the only one of these schools on the hit list that suffered this kind of violence recently. Lately, on the night of the 26th, Doolittle East School, which is supposed to be taking part in a co-location with Arts charter school or contract school, at the hearing, the parents from both schools, from Arts and Doolittle, said they don't want the co-location. It's not suitable for any of them. And then they talked about an October 24th shooting outside the school. If we were able to get the city to provide us with the information, I think one of the things we'd find is that the crime index, especially gang activity near all these schools, is unconscionable.
I'm Shaitan Dunlap, and I would like to say about the schooling, if you close down the schools and send the children in another neighborhood, I'm speaking for the males, it is a lot of gang affiliations that goes on. So if you take them from one neighborhood and send them to another neighborhood that they're not familiar with, all kind of things happen, such as deaths, beat-ups. Kids can't focus in school. And then, not only speaking of that, when you close down a couple of schools, the kids going to get overcrowded in the classroom. Now you got 30 kids in one classroom. How can a teacher teach 30 children at one time? My kid is lacking. He's not getting all the education that he needs. So what are you here for? Are you here for the children, to protect our children, so our children can be the best, because they are the future for tomorrow? So we need y'all to stand up and do what y'all supposed to do. Don't close the schools down. Fix the schools up. Get more teachers. Do what you have to do so our children can have education and they can learn.
It's part of the story, the cynical story of how Chicago allows certain communities to become victims of these drug gangs, and the children in those communities then to become doubly and triply victims when the Board of Education turns around and says your school has to be subjected to turnaround because your test scores are low, and not because your society has failed to provide jobs, has failed to provide safety for its children, and has failed to stop these massive international drug gangs that prey on large swaths of the inner city, just like out of the HBO series The Wire.
My name is Marilyn Foster. I'm a teacher at Dyett H.S. And I spoke today at the hearing, our first community meeting hearing, and what I talked about was the fact that all these resources that were being taken out of Dyett H.S. As a matter of fact, this year we started with no assistant principal for the whole entire year, and in September one of our 2 counselors were taken out of the school, and we have over 300 students. So, and that's not to mention all of the staff that was taken out, including the 1 art teacher. There's supposedly a better education being provided for Dyett's freshmen or would-be freshmen for next year who are going to be sent to Phillips High School, which is under the control of AUSL. I can't remember what it stands for, but it's a private organization that's taken over a lot of our high schools, and there's no proof whatsoever that they can be successful with high schools.
The hearings on January 6th and January 20th were all held at the same time and on the same days, so it was difficult for activists to coordinate, but each school was able to develop its own defense, and people from the school, along with their supporters, did testify. What happened that's most interesting and is now national news is that at each of those hearings, starting on January 6th, Chicago preachers who'd been usually subsidized with some kind of federal or state contracts through Rahm Emanuel's office bust in protesters who were told to hold up signs and support the mayor and the Board of Education against the schools. When we first saw this happening in September, and that's the first time Substance documented it, we dubbed it Rahm's Rent-a-Protest, Rent-a-Preacher. After January 6th, our colleagues in the corporate media began looking into this, and by January 20th, the second round of hearings, a number of the corporate media, 3 in particular, were really on the story. Although the Sun-Times jumped the line and claimed an exclusive expose of the Rent-a-Protest movement on page 1 this week, in fact, they didn't have an exclusive. A lot of us were on the story, and the story was first broken by me in Substance back on September 8th. But it was good to have it out, and one of the interesting things was that the protester who was featured on page 1 of the Sun-Times first contacted us through Substance after we reported the January 6th Rent-a-Protest. He wanted to comment and talk about how he didn't know he was supposed to be against the school, and when he got to the protests on January 6th, he rebelled against the idea that he was supposed to talk about the closings of Crane Dyett and the other schools that were on the hit list.
Now, this is a very trying time for all of us concerned. However, our video by our Crane students will assist us in keeping the focus tonight where it belongs, which is firmly on you beautiful people, our students of Richard T. Crane High School.
On January 20th, the second hearing on Crane was held at Malcolm X College. And like the first one, it really did fill a large part of the gymnasium there. This time, though, because people were ready, they actually saw the protesters getting off the Rent-a-Protest buses, identified them inside, and there were some confrontations and some direct action questioning why they were there and how they got there.
It's like 30 minutes, something like that.
And did they tell you why to, like what school or anything like that?
No.
Did they offer you some money?
Yeah.
How much?
30.
And they told you to come and say close the school?
Yeah.
You guys live around here?
No.
You guys live out south?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I stay way east.
Okay. Who was the coordinator that they told?
Don't know. We
No?
just heard it like from some people in the neighborhood.
Okay.
And they just told us.
Go to Malcolm X at Friday night, and they'll give you some money.
Yeah.
Be here at 6 o'clock.
Was it a certain church?
You know, see, my friends told us, so they probably know they supposed to be here at 6 o'clock.
Right.
So
where do you live at?
Stay outside.
He's been looking for you.
Right. You're waiting the $30, right?
Yeah, we would.
Right. I know.
The question still arises as to the direct involvement of the mayor, Rahm Emanuel. In fact, I covered this story on August 25th, where Rahm Emanuel hosted a breakfast at Sox Park in the United Airlines Scout Lounge there, and all these preachers were gathered together. And at that time, the mayor asked them to deliver sermons in their churches in support of his version of this longer school day attack on the Chicago Teachers Union, and they were asked to sign a petition. It was clear to me then that this movement was afoot, but it unfolded slowly, and now it's really coming to glorious fruition with everybody paying attention in the winter of 2012.
Our students come to us below where they should be. In spite of this, our students at least have at least 1 year's growth every year as required by the Board of Education, even without resources. Also, in spite of these and other challenges, Dyett's graduation rate is 56%, not 33%, as opposed to Phillips, who has access to resources, yet only graduate 39%. Again, this data is published by the Illinois State Board of Education. So my question to the board who is proposing this action is, why is it in the best interest of our students to be sent to a school where they have less of a chance to graduate and be successful? It doesn't even make sense.
So there were 5 school actions that potentially impacted Dyett since '99, with spike violence and more, all in a neighborhood totally destabilized by gentrification and displacement over the past 10 years. No school plan attempting to improve Dyett would be complete without a thorough investigation of who went there over those years, under what circumstances, and with what additional resources or not. To conclude, CEO Brizard wrote to Dyett parents on November 30th, 2011, I quote, that's thank you to Google and the web, quote, "This is why we are proposing today, after a very lengthy and thoughtful process, to phase out Dyett," unquote. What, quote, very lengthy and thoughtful process, unquote, involves students, teachers, parents, community members, alumni, and school partners? Why are the plans ready to roll out before doing that? Why has Brizard, and before him Mazzani, Huberman, Duncan, and even Vallis, never sat down in genuine partnership and learned from all those in the school community how to improve the school? I don't think that would have happened in a well-off white community like Lincoln Park. Do you? Why hasn't the $2 million promised for each turnaround school gone to schools like Dyett? Why have the physical improvements to Dyett been made, and what is the real plan CPS and the mayor's office have for Washington Park and Dyett High School?
Sir, please conclude.
I'm concluding. I have 2 sentences. The suspicion here is that this is a business plan, not an education plan, a plan by and for the 1%. Instead, CPS needs to partner with the Kenwood-Oakland Community Organization and the Bronzeville Global Achievers Village planned. Remember, appointed Board of Education, these are our children, not corporate product.
One of the incredible and terrible things that's going on right now is the attempt to, having destroyed a lot of the West Side high schools, the Board of Education has now targeted Crane High School for co-location and phase-out. That basically means that over the next 4 years, Crane will be bled to death. It'll be deprived of incoming students. And slowly the demoralization inside will equal what the Board of Ed did to Collins High School when it did the same thing to Austin High School and to Calumet High School. Generally, what the board has done when these things have been taking place is that they've lied about a lot of things, including the actual long-term intention, and they've then let the school collapse from the inside. Every year there's fewer students, therefore fewer teachers, therefore fewer opportunities to do extracurricular activities and sports. The Crane protest has been one of the best organized and most widespread.
I'd like to submit a document on the conclusion of my comments. At the community meeting for proposals to phase out Crane High School and co-locate Crane High School and Talent Development High School on January 6, 2012, there was a number of people who spoke, including the elected officials of the Near West and West Side. Their names include Senator Annazette Collins, Alderman Bob Fioretti, Committeeman Ed Smith, the 28th Ward, Alderman Walter Burnett, and a number of other elected officials, including Congressman Danny Davis. None of them advocated for the closure or phase-out of Crane High School. Those are the elected officials of the people of the west side of Chicago. Not one of them said, close Crane down. Okay? This is a democracy. The elected officials represent the people. Respect their opinion. Second, the Illinois General Assembly Chicago Educational Facilities Task Force on January 12th said that the guidelines for school actions are not in compliance with state law. Mandates including 34-230 and PA 970474, etc., etc. These people said, and their state representatives, including Soto, Golar, Holgren, Staines, and Martinez, other elected officials of the Chicago area and state of Illinois, saying that you did also not comply with the state law. So CBS, according to the legislature of Illinois, is breaking the law. I don't see you saying anything in response because you know it's true. Hundreds of people are here tonight because they want to keep Crane open and a neighborhood school for all children. Now, a few weeks ago in the Chicago Tribune, Tim Cawley, the administrative officer, said that he would not invest in schools that's going to close. So invest that money in Crane now for these kids. In the room, put the books in the pier.
The Crane protest, from what I can tell, has also involved the largest number of public officials. The most dramatic and thorough and comprehensive testimony in opposition to closing of Crane has been given by Alderman Bob Fioretti. And he spoke again at the January 25th meeting of the Board of Education for about 10 minutes, outlining everything that's wrong with this. And he said that his speaking was on behalf of the state senators, state reps, and even former Alderman Ed Smith and Congressman Danny Davis, although a little bit reluctantly in our opinion, all joined behind Bob Fioretti and said, we're opposed to what's going to be done to Crane.
It is very important that you pay attention, that there's going to be loss of life, not just violence. There's been loss of life everywhere that you have taken these children. If you look at when you took the children out of Austin High School and put them in Clemente, fights were like crazy up there, to the point where you had to take the children and put them back in Austin. But you all don't care. All you care about is the mass gentrification and the wiping out of poor people. But the blood of these children are on your hand. The blood of these children are on your hand, Mr. Ruiz, Mr. Jesse Ruiz, Vice President. Chicago Public Schools is about business, about these massive corporations with the Civic Committee and the Commercial Club. And our thing is to raise these children up the way they had to do in New York, when you took $365 million out of the public school system. We have to raise hell with them. You cannot be peaceful with these people. If you be peaceful, they're going to walk all over you. You try to do it the right way, they can give a damn about you doing it the right way. You got to raise hell and kick over some tables. This man makes about $180,000 a year as Mr. Turnaround in the Chicago public school system.
Again, if we can keep it respectful.
So, you have to raise hell. Look. He better off listen to me here than listen to me in the streets. Now, you can listen to me here, you can listen to me in the streets, and I'll come to your damn job.
As everyone who's followed this knows, once the Board of Education published a list of schools they claim to be failure, claim to be worthy of subjecting to turnaround or closing, that becomes the hit list, and there is no real appeal. The hearings are basically show trials. The Board of Education officials read from a scripted booklet which goes into the record, and the hearing officer, although he will announce at each of the hearings, and so far it's all been he's, they announce that they're impartial hearing officers. In fact, their only job at the hearings is to render a decision as to whether the Board of Education has followed the procedures as outlined by Illinois law. Last night on January 26th at the hearing on Guggenheim Elementary, which is slated for closing, I spoke and testified. I'm an advocacy reporter, not pretending to the kind of objectivity our corporate brothers and sisters claim to. And I pointed out that the hearing was basically a show trial and that the hearing officer was only being asked to render a verdict on the Board of Education's following the procedures of the law. And that with a $10 million law department that has more than 40 lawyers working for it, it's certainly likely that the Board of Education could dot every I and cross every T procedurally to be in compliance with the law. So that in a way, these hearings are cruel jokes played upon the people from the community, the teachers, the students, and the parents. And it's been that kind of cruel joke since Arnie Duncan began this process 10 years ago with his attack on Williams, Dodge, and Terrell elementary schools.